welcome. My name is David. I am a community manager here at Trilitech. I basically work on anything that brings the ecosystem closer together. That being bringing Trilitech closer to the overall Tezos ecosystem and the community, but also other entities as well, so that we all are Tezos focused and we understand the community better. That's what I do, but I'm not the guest today. The guest today is Adebola. So Adebola, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, my name is Adebola and I am a developer advocate here at Trilitech and supporting developers on the Tezos ecosystem.
Amazing. So dev relationships, or dev for short, is a really crucial part of any big tech like this. So the blockchain, because it's very technical, it's very hard. I know I've spoken to Sasha about it, that it's hard to get people to build. So first of all, how did you get into that, and what's your background and what led you here?
Okay, so good question. So my background, actually, I studied information systems in uni, and the reason why I decided to do that was because I was interested in not just the technical side of things, but I was also very interested in like the business application of technology, right? So we're building technology, but we're also thinking about how it affects businesses and how it affects the lives of everyday users. And so after that, I enjoyed my computer science courses. I also enjoyed my business courses. But after graduating, I decided I wanted to pursue more of a technical path. And yeah, basically got into a career in software engineering. I worked for a couple of startups based out of Australia and based out of the US as well. And then I decided to, get into fintech because my friends were starting a startup. And so I decided to, support them and kind of build out the tech over there as well. So I was working on a lot of the internal applications. And also, having meetings with like banks and regulators and things like that. But throughout all of these times and throughout all of these periods, one thing that I always enjoyed was developer education, right? So every time I learned something new, every time I learned a new technology, I would put out a blog or write an article about it or record a video about it, because that was my passion. That's what I enjoyed doing the most, learning new technologies, teaching other people about it. And one of the things I enjoyed the most was reading people's comments on my blogs, thanking me for helping them. That gave me a lot of satisfaction. So developer relations is something that I've pretty much always done, even before getting a role here at Trilly. And so when this opportunity came up to work at Trilly and to help developers on board on the blockchain ecosystem, for me, it just felt like, a match made in heaven and a perfect fit for me. Yeah, and I basically decided to take it up and to support the ecosystem. Plus, I also understand that being from a Nigerian background as a Nigerian, crypto is huge in Africa. I think we're like number 2 in terms of crypto adoption across the world. And I knew that there's a massive opportunity and also a massive potential to be able to build, blockchain applications for emerging markets and for Africa as well. So that opportunity to be able to learn and soak up all of that knowledge and teach new developers coming through, for me was definitely something I was passionate about and super interested in.
That's really, really interesting. I didn't know you put out blogs before joining Trilly. That's super cool. Like, from my own perspective, I remember when I was young, starting out in graphic design, then eventually saying like, oh, I'm going to make my own website. This was, how long ago was this? 7 years ago, probably. And I remember it being somewhat hard to find specific things. And I remember coming across different types of people that helped me, whether it was through YouTube videos or blogs that you were posting, and it really helped. And it's really interesting that you said it really satisfied you as a person to see that people actually found what you were doing helpful. I can definitely imagine that being the case, and it's so good that that's your sort of passion, which makes your role here at Trilitech just a perfect fit from what I can hear.
Exactly.
The other part is also like the market, as you say, in Africa is a huge, like not untapped market because it's already tapped into from the sense of being the second one in terms of adoption, but it's also really interesting. So I'm curious about how do you sort of view yourself, maybe not in Trilly, but just on a personal level, impacting that and bringing that adoption forward and making sure that, or how are you basically trying to help Africa become that sort of hub?
I think because of my kind of understanding and my experience within the fintech space as well on the continent, because basically like we were building a business that was working out of Nigeria, also Benin Republic and also Guinea Conakry as well, but kind of domiciled in the US, right? I know what a lot of the pain points are. I know what a lot of the issues are, right? Particularly in the finance space. That's kind of what I'm, focused on or talking about right now. And so I'm able to help, other fintechs or other people who are trying to build products within the financial ecosystem in, say, Nigeria or in parts of Africa. I'm able to give them advice. I'm able to say, I think you should try XYZ based on my own experiences as well. And then I'm also part of a lot of blockchain communities too on the continent, because at the end of the day, like, I feel like community is what is what is going to make technology great, right? So you might have great technology, but if you don't have a community around it, it's not going to go anywhere, right? So one of the things I try to do is I try to basically be a part of blockchain communities. So I'm a part of quite a number of them. But I also because my background is in Web2 and also like in fintechs, I'm also part of like all of those other conversations as well. So I'm able to take all of the knowledge that I gain from, say, my Web2 side or my Web2 background and my fintech background, and also like my blockchain background, or my Web3 background, and I'm able to basically support engineers who are trying to build products within these spaces because of the knowledge that I've got, right? So definitely like being a part of the community and just being able to support the knowledge that I'm gaining across the different fields and across the different sectors that I'm working in.
That's really cool. And you said, I'm curious about you mentioned that you're familiar with the pain points that people are experiencing.
Yeah.
And you can see sort of a solution for that. So what, like, specifically, what are some of these pain points that people are experiencing, and how do you solve for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think one major thing is credit, and credits, say like in the UK or in the West, to a large extent, it's kind of solved, right? So because everyone has a credit score, everyone has a credit history, so it's easy to determine who gets credit or who doesn't get credit, right? But in Nigeria, for example, yes, we have a credit bureau, but it's still very, very early days for them. And for a lot of people, there is no credit data on them, right? So one of the problems that I'm working on and trying to solve as well is how do we take lending data or people who are accessing credit and bring that data onto the blockchain, right? So you can basically go to any financial institution and say, hey, like I own my own data, I own my credit data. You can verify this data because it's already on the blockchain, and I can share that data with different financial entities so I can access credit from them. Right. So that's something that I'm very passionate about. I'm very curious about as well. And even for like immigration as well. So if you move from, say, Nigeria to, say, the UK, it's very difficult to move your credit data across borders, right? So how do we use the blockchain to take that data and share it across, multiple continents, multiple countries, and also multiple borders, essentially, right? So in a way, I won't see the world as being borderless, because I can move my data with me wherever I go. So that's part of the pain points that I see. That's one major pain point I see, and I see the blockchain solving that problem.
That's incredibly interesting. I've never actually heard that ever. In my years of being involved in blockchain communities, I've never actually heard that, and it sounds incredibly interesting. First of all, especially if you don't own your own data, you're essentially not in charge of it to some extent. And I definitely see the use case for blockchain solving that. So that's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So pivoting back to sort of your role at Trilitech. So what does a normal sort of day Trilitech involve? Like, what specifically are you working on?
Okay, so right now I'm developing a course for the ecosystem. Essentially, one of the things that I realized when I joined, also with Beata, so Beata is also a developer advocate here at Trilly, and she's one of my colleagues as well. Shout out Beata, she's on this call. So one of the things that we noticed when we joined is that when you want to come into the Tezos ecosystem, you kind of do not know where to start from, right? And so, for example, with maybe other ecosystems, if you pretty much search for a course on them, you might find like a full-fledged course, and you can go from maybe like junior to intermediate in, say, maybe a month, right? Just by following the course. But for Tezos, we didn't really find anything like that. Of course, we have the docs. The docs are great, and we have some things scattered around. But there wasn't a central place where people could come to and learn about how to build on Tezos. So that's one of the primary things that I'm working on right now, also alongside Tim, who is our technical writer. And we're trying to build this course that we can distribute across many platforms so that anyone can simply come, look at the course, go through the course, maybe spend 2 to 3 weeks or a month on the course, and they should be able to build something that is production ready and ready to go live. So right now, that's kind of my focus. That's what I'm working on every single day. But also alongside that, I'm recording content as well for the community. So I'm writing some smaller tutorials, also recording video content as well, and I'm pushing that out. But day to day, like, it looks different. So for example, last month we were at Eat London, and a few days ago the team was at NBX in Berlin. So yeah, we also get to move around and spread the gospel of building on Tezos. But day to day, generally my rule is creating content. How do I make the lives of developers easier? How do I make them, basically be able to look at a course or go through a tutorial and be able to build their own production ready application very quickly?
That's really interesting. I noticed, like, when you talked about the cost, one thing that, like, the first thing I noticed when I got involved in the Tezos ecosystem and knew that I was going to be working on the community side of things, I noticed that the community is incredibly scattered. It's all over the place, basically. The user funnel is almost turned upside down. You don't go from Twitter to a Discord, for example. You go from a Twitter and end up in either 5 different Discord channels or 20 different Telegram channels. It's very hard to see that user funnel. Yeah. And it's somewhat the same problem that you're trying to solve with the docs or learning how to build on Tezos. I'm trying to solve the same problem, but from a user perspective of where they interact with the rest of the ecosystem. So I saw that similarity. It's really interesting. I had a follow-up question on that as well, which was really good. Sadly, I didn't write it down, which is my mistake. But how? Essentially, I see it as because I'm trying to sort of tie it into what I'm doing and what I've experienced within the blockchain space. And I remember a few years ago when I wanted to, I've coded a bit in my days. I'm definitely not calling myself a programmer here, incredible beginner. But I remember going on Crypto Zombies and trying to learn Solidity through a game. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. And I thought that was really, really cool, like really interesting. I can write my code and I can get live feedback, visual feedback from what I write. And it was a super good way to onboard me in the beginning stages. So what's your take on a developer basically not knowing anything or knowing very, very little about programming? And the first thing they want to do is maybe starting to build something on a blockchain and they choose Tezos. How do you see, is there a good way for them to do that? And if so, what is it? And also, what are your thoughts to make that better? Is there any opportunities you see to sort of enhance them in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, so right now, I'm going to be very honest with you. You cannot get that experience on Tezos, right? And even the course that we're working on right now, it assumes that you have some programming knowledge, at least the very basics, for you to be able to participate in the course, right? But of course, the goal eventually for us over the next year, particularly going into 2024, is how do I get someone like you, David, right, with zero experience with programming to become a blockchain or a smart contract engineer, right? And so we're going to be making improvements to the course. We're going to be thinking about what else can we add? How do we give people fundamental programming knowledge and help them to write contracts or write applications that you can deploy to the blockchain, right? But right now, today, that is not something that you can get on Tezos. You're going to have to go find your programming fundamentals or your computer science basics from other platforms. For me, like a platform that I love is FreeCodeCamp. I think that they're very good at giving you the basics and introducing you to the basics of programming. So I always recommend for people to check it out. Like if people are getting started programming, I always say, hey, go check out FreeCodeCamp. And also look at roadmap.sh as well, because they would basically, guide you down the path that you need to go to become any kind of engineer that you want to be. But yes, developer education is something I'm very passionate about. It's something that I'm very interested in. And one of the things that I want to try to bring to the Tezos ecosystem is basically taking someone from even high school, right? You basically have no knowledge of programming, no knowledge of coding, but in say 9 months you can become a blockchain or a smart contract engineer. Yeah, because I mean the other day I was speaking to my friend who is a geography teacher at one of the high schools here in London. And she said, a lot of the kids don't understand what tech is and what careers in tech look like. So one of the things that Beata and I are working on as well is how do we go to high schools and basically show them what a career in tech looks like, and then give them the tools to help them become engineers, essentially, right? So even before you graduate from uni, you could essentially have had 2 to 3 years of experience building things on the blockchain, building things on Tezos, and essentially becoming an engineer. But yes, I agree with you. Like, we need to create those courses. We need to create those tools and those resources to help people on board very quickly. But again, there are quite a number of very, very good courses and tools out there to help people to learn the fundamentals of programming.
That's really interesting. The part about going around to schools is something that I feel pretty passionate about myself, just because I come from the background of essentially deciding at age 15 that I'm going to do something on my own. I don't need uni, I'm better than that. Obviously, that's a huge risk to take, and I don't recommend people take it.
Yeah.
But in that sense, like when I was at that stage, it was like I am basically betting on that I can find everything out myself without any guidance. The guidance I have is all coming from online things. But having you or Beata, let's circle back 5 years ago. Let's say when I was younger and in high school, having one of you come out, speak about what a career in tech looks like, especially on the dev side, that could have impacted my thoughts a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I think that it's incredibly important, especially because at that stage, sort of in your life, you're either thinking I am becoming the next Elton John, or you have no idea. I thought I was going to be the Elton John of blockchain, and I'm more so like a cover singer. One day I'll get there. But that's really interesting. I did not even know you guys were working on that, but that's super cool.
Yeah. I mean, so for us, like the most important thing is how do we get people into the Tezos ecosystem? Whether you're a developer, whether you're someone that's an advocate for the community, whether you're someone that, you don't necessarily have to be technical to come into the community, right? You could always work. I mean, if you think about like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, right? Steve Jobs wasn't really technical, right? But Wozniak was technical, and they were able to work very, very closely and very well together, right? So if you can get the word out about the Tezos ecosystem, technical people and non-technical people would gravitate towards each other, and I think that they could build something incredible.
Yeah, definitely. That's really interesting. We sort of talked about we talked about onboarding the new developers that have no experience at all, but they want to start. I'm interested, like let's say resources, finances, and nothing else was an issue. You could freely decide what you wanted to build in the best way possible to onboard the developers and make sure people in the best way possible understand how to build stuff on Tezos. What would that be? Just like paradise speaking, what's Adebola's ideal utopia for a developer on Tezos?
So you're asking what kind of tools would I build to allow people to basically onboard on developing on Tezos very quickly, right?
Yes. So like if resources and finances was not an issue at all, you had everything at your disposal.
Yeah, I mean, I would build something like Brickcode Camp. I keep going back to the example because I think it's a brilliant example. And essentially what it is that it's a bite-sized. So you have like bite-sized courses, and you have an online editor right within your browser. So you're looking at the course, you're reading the course, and you are also typing out the code, right? And you're getting instant feedback. I think that there is nothing as good as getting instant feedback as you learn, right? So if I say, hey, we're going to deploy an Hello World smart contract, or a smart contract that 1 and 2 together, right? If I can basically create a very simple IDE that you can go into, read the course, and at the same time write the code, and at the same time see what you've deployed or see the code that you're writing working on the blockchain, I think that's the most incredible experience that you can have. Right, and of course we could add to that maybe building a game, right? And you can kind of walk through the tutorial and write the game in stages, and also see the game work right in your browser. So you don't need to flip between tabs. You don't need to flip between like your VS Code editor and your browser, different interfaces. You could simply have one interface that allows you to look at the course, write the code, and interact with the code that you've deployed. For me, I think that would be the utopia of developer education and developer experience.
I don't think that's an impossible or unreachable utopia either. I think that's doable. Yeah. I have trust in you. I have faith in you, Adebola.
Thanks for believing in the dream.
I definitely believe in the dream. I come and for everybody who's listening or listening back to this, I almost a few times a day at this point, I come into the dev success room and almost disturb them throughout the day and just ask a random question, and I get thrown out by Claude instantly again. One of my favorite rooms to go and just talk nonsense with. So I have a follow-up question. This is another big question. I feel like I'm asking really huge questions, but What do you think are like the most exciting things that you see in 2024 that you think like you will have your finger on it, you will have an impact on it, and that you can see like really elevates the developer experience on Tezos?
I think the biggest thing that we're doing in 2024 is tools. So right now, I'm working very closely with the tools and ecosystem team led by Tezos. Basically, we're trying to release new tools that will make it easier for developers to onboard on Tezos and to start to deploy their smart contracts on Tezos. And as you know, like we're also releasing Interlink as well. So basically, if you've already written things in Solidity, you can simply put that over to Interlink and have that, on Tezos. And we're also releasing Justice, which is a JavaScript rollup as well. So I'm super excited about the tech that we're releasing next year. And I think that the tech, particularly Justice, has a huge potential to bring a lot of developers into the ecosystem, right? Because you're basically just writing, a lot of developers already write JavaScript every single day. So you're basically just bringing your JavaScript over and writing it on the blockchain. So I think that that's going to be a fantastic experience for many devs. And I think the potential for us to onboard developers is huge. And I'm super excited about that. But yeah, working very closely with the ecosystem and tools team, just to say, hey, I think developers need more of X kind of tools for them to get started quickly, to get started faster, and to be able to deploy code. Because as a dev, you don't want to spend all day writing a smart contract, right? You kind of want to have the logic written out. So you probably have like a flow diagram that you want to build out, and you want to get into the editor and write and have instant feedback from your editor, telling you where there are errors in your code that you can fix and basically deploy to the blockchain. So for me, that's kind of pretty much what I'm excited about for next year. The tools and technology that can help developers launch their products faster.
That's really interesting. I myself also like semi-working on Etherlink. It's really interesting to see that coming along, and I'm incredibly excited to see what sort of how that will impact the overall Tezos ecosystem. But you mentioned tooling in the beginning. This is coming from a non-technical person, semi-non-technical at least. What specific tooling is being built, if you can even share that yet, and how do you think that will impact? Like, what are the biggest things in terms of tooling that will enhance the developer experience?
So for layer one, for example, so for Tezos layer one, we've actually we've taken lessons from other blockchains that we've seen, and how quickly it is to basically run one or two commands to get up and running, building your own things within VS Code, for example. So right now, if you're going to deploy anything on Tezos, you kind of need to install the Octave client on your MacBook. You need to install Docker. You need to install a couple of things to get up and running. So one of the things that we're trying to do is that we're trying to reduce the number of steps that developers need to take to get up and running, writing code and deployed on Tezos, right? We want you to simply be able to run npm install X package, right? And once you have that package installed, you write your code, you write your configuration file, and you can write npm deploy contract, right? And it goes straight to the blockchain. So that's kind of what we're trying to achieve. Those are the kind of tools that we're building out for devs in collaboration with the tools and ecosystem team, because of course they are the ones building the tools for these experiences. So I think if we can get tools like that set up, then it's going to be very easy for anyone to. It's going to be easier. Let me not say very easy, but it's going to become easier for anyone to deploy things to the blockchain. So that's something I'm excited about, and that's something I'm working very closely with the team on as well. And then for Justice too, we're going to have a number of tools to work alongside Justice, but of course we can't talk too much about that at the moment.
Justice is an interesting one as well. I think that will be quite a big one. Just out of curiosity, I'm not sure if you know. I'm just asking because I don't know and I'm curious. Is there anything like Justice out there yet, or are we pioneering the way as we usually do on Tezos?
So that's a great question. As far as I know, there's nothing like Justice out there. So yeah, there's nothing like Justice out there. Of course, like people are. So for example, even on Tezos, right? You have JS Ligo, which is supposed to be like a TypeScript flavor, but it isn't quite. I guess I would argue that it's not really like JavaScript, or it's not really like TypeScript. I guess maybe other people might argue otherwise. But yeah, so I mean, I think different ecosystems have tried flavors of JavaScript, but I think that we would probably be one of the first to launch something that is purely JavaScript based.
That's really interesting. I'm very excited for that. I don't have anything else I want to bring up or ask you. Maybe, though, there is some things you want to share or you're excited about that we haven't touched on yet that you were expecting me to ask. And if there is, the stage is yours.
I think the only thing I want to say is that everyone on this call should, or everyone that's listening to me, should go take our JavaScript developer survey. It's super important to us. It's what is going to inform the kind of tools and kind of libraries that we build for the ecosystem. So if you're listening to this, please make sure we're going to have the link somewhere. So David is going to put the link somewhere. So for everyone to go take the JavaScript developer survey, it's super important to us. We'd like to get feedback from the community in determining the kind of tools that we build, the kind of tutorials that we put out, and the kind of content that we put out in general for developers, and how we improve the developer experience on the platform as well. So please make sure to fill out the survey. If you need any help, please reach out to me as well, and we can catch up.
Awesome. I think we've seen a sort of a shift happen over the past few months when it comes to listening to community. So I'm doing my own community survey right now, which is just focused on hearing everybody's pain points in the ecosystem. There are some devs in there. I'll share their survey with you, Adebola, when we have the results in. I think they'll be interesting for you and your team as well. Okay. But having this, obviously, as Adebola said, fill out the survey, please. If you're a developer, it's really important because it makes sure that the things they are building are actually going to be used and are actually valuable to the rest of the ecosystem, which is essentially why we're here, right? We want to make sure that the things we build are being used and they're valuable to many different people. So I will share the link after this call. Adebola, if you just send that over to me and I'll get it out there. And then also for the people listening back to you on YouTube right now, it should be in the YouTube description. I'll make sure of it. So yeah, that's it. Thanks everybody in the audience who listened, and also a huge shout out to Adebola for coming on and doing this with me. I think we'll see each other again very soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, David. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
You too, Adebola. Thank you so much.